Oh my days, Kendrick, man. These surprise drops out of the dark are gonna kill me. I haven't even been on camera for like 6 months, but I need to get these thoughts out immediately. So here we are. I'm recording this video a week and a half, almost 2 weeks after GNX dropped. After spinning it like 20, 30, 40 times. By the time that this video drops, I'm just praying Kendrick doesn't drop anything else. Please, just let me keep up. GNX, Kendrick, new album. He dropped a 1 minute snippet 30 minutes before the album dropped. I got the notification on my phone. I'm thinking, oh, he's gearing up for a new single, maybe before his Super Bowl performance. And then 30 minutes later, the whole fucking album just drops. I shit you not, I almost dropped off my bike when I got the notification that this album dropped. We all know 2024 has been Kendrick's year. His incendiary verse on Metro Boomin's Like That started a rap civil war that reverberated across pop culture. His week-long back and forth with Drake, strategically dropping at the most unexpected opportune moments, culminating in the biggest rap song of the year, Not Like Us, was a diss surgery. His approach broke most of the perceived rules of rap beef and of just dropping music in general, all without any social media promotion or presence aside from this string of crazy tweets. He let the music speak for itself. And 6 months later, people are still playing these songs. Rumors were circulating at the height of the beef that Kendrick was gearing up for an album release, which was even alluded to by Drake himself. However, Watch the Party Die was noticeably wider in scope than his diss tracks, leaning heavier into a dejected, confrontational, and almost disgusted attitude from Kendrick. This coincided with the announcement that Kendrick was to headline the 2025 Super Bowl halftime show in New Orleans in February of 2025, the first solo rapper to ever do that. With that, I personally was expecting a project to drop in and around the first part of 2025. But like 2024 has taught us, expect the unexpected from Kendrick. GNX is the first full-length surprise album that Kendrick has ever dropped in his career, if you don't count Untitled Unmastered, and it's meant to catch you off guard, like a left hook right to your temple. GNX at a glance is the most aggressive, violent, and in-your-face album Kendrick has ever dropped. Sonically and lyrically, that is. However, counterintuitively, it might be his most playful, inventive, and downright silly at times in terms of his delivery and vocal inflections. And I say silly affectionately. Look at this fucking hoodie that Kendrick wore. First question, of course, what is GNX? What does that mean? I'm not from LA, as you can probably tell from my accent, so I had to look that shit up. GNX is the name of this model of Buick Regal, a car that presumably Kendrick himself, of course, owns, seen here twice in the teaser video for GNX. He also teased it on his burner account, Jojo Ruski. GNX stands for Grand National Experiment, and this particular model isn't just any car, apparently. Only 547 GNXs were ever made. It only ever came in black, was particularly expensive due to its scarcity, and its final year of production was 1987, the year that Kendrick was also born. The thematic parallels between this car and how Kendrick sees himself are of course right there. It's what he sees as a lineage of black excellence, literally. In an interview 12 years ago with Complex magazine, he said that his father drove him in the parent model of the GNX, a Buick Regal. He said that his father was spinning Big Daddy Kane in the car as he was driven home from the hospital. In California and LA, the GNX is regarded as one of the hardest cars ever made due to its imposing body frame and insane power. Those themes can of course be mapped straight onto this album. It's loud, intimidating, and abrasive. It's also Kendrick's most regional album, pulling heavy from a range of super West Coast sounds and platforming a string of lesser known West Coast rappers on the album. At 44 minutes, GNX is Kendrick's shortest album to date. It doesn't have the high concept overarching narrative that his other albums have, although he does go to some super conceptual places on individual songs. It has the feel of a mixtape in its execution, intent, and sound, but what separates this album from his other works is how in the moment it feels. Kendrick's bars and stories tend to be universal in their application, lending itself to what people call its timelessness. But on GNX, it sounds like he's responding to things very recently. Sometimes it feels like he's responding to things in real time or things that have only happened a few weeks prior to the release of the album. GNX opens with Whacked Out Murals, its title a reference to his mural in Compton that was recently vandalized and defaced with some graffiti. The beat is metallic and unnerving, building and building in tension and intensity. It opens with a mariachi singer called Dea Barrero and her haunting but beautiful Spanish vocals. And according to her, Kendrick saw her performing at a Dodgers game, heard her sing, and wanted to work with her immediately. Kendrick positions himself as someone who is comfortable with and ready for war. Yesterday, somebody whacked out my murals. That energy will make you niggas move to Europe, but it's regular for me, that's for sure. It makes me feel so fucking old at this point, knowing that I've been listening to Kendrick's music for more than half of my life, but I have to reconcile the fact that Kendrick Lamar is a veteran. He's been doing this for 15 plus years now. He's been through this shit before and is now at the point where violence seems to be the answer. I kill him more before I let him kill my joy is the energy of the entire album. In a dark follow-up to the end of Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, where he declared that he chose himself and his family over saving the world. He's now at a point where he's willing to do anything to protect that peace he feels he earned through the journey of Mr. Morale. It used to be fuck that nigga, and now it's plural. Of course, in the aftermath of the Drake beef, is Kendrick's way of saying any one of you can catch a stray bar. It's not just him, it's all of you, which isn't a surprising angle considering the ethos and energy of Watch the Party Die. My blick This bar makes me laugh. My blick first, then God got me. That's the explicit violence right there. Look at the artwork for Mr. Morale, for example. This isn't anything new, but it's now delivered in a blunt, straight to the point way. The chorus is framed as a list of guidelines and rules that Kendrick is giving us if you wish to enter the world of rap, which he seems to view as a battlefield. If they say it's love, you've been lied to, he says. In the second verse, he explicitly references some rap legends who he feels either slighted by or betrayed by or who have just been tweaking. Kendrick raps, used to bump the Carter 3, I held my rolly chain proud. Irony, I think my hard work let Lil Wayne down. Way down. This is a bar with a few layers, of course. In September, Lil Wayne expressed his disappointment at him not being chosen to perform at the 2025 Super Bowl, which is taking place in his hometown of New Orleans. Lil Wayne said, "It broke me and I'm just trying to put me back together. But my God, have you all helped me. Thanks to all my peers, my friends, my family, my homies on the sports television and everyone repping me. I feel like I let a lot of y'all down by not getting that opportunity, but I'm working on me and I'm working, so thank you." The likes of Nicki Minaj and Cameron weren't too pleased with Kendrick being selected as the halftime performer, framing it as a kind of snub against Wayne. Again, I'm clearly not American. I do work with a lot of Americans. Most of my colleagues are American. I am aware of how big of a deal the halftime show is at the Super Bowl. But as far as I'm aware, there is very little precedent for selecting artists from the place where that given Super Bowl is taking place. The Weeknd isn't from Florida. Rihanna isn't from Arizona. Beyonce isn't from New Orleans, funnily enough. I mean, if you want to take it way back, Michael Jackson isn't from California. When he performed in 1993, I don't think California artists like Metallica or the Eagles were claiming some sort of entitlement to perform at the Super Bowl. It's not exactly a snub if you weren't considered. Don't get me wrong, I love Lil Wayne. I'm a huge fan of his music. I don't really think he's in his prime, and I don't think he's known for his performance and stage presence, which is clearly a big factor in determining who performs at the Super Bowl. Of course, the extra layer of this bar comes from the fact that there are very few people on this planet who are bigger fans of Lil Wayne than Kendrick Lamar himself. Kendrick's entire C4 mixtape, for example, was him rapping over Lil Wayne beats. And the extra layer on top of the extra layer, of course, is Lil Wayne's association with Drake. Wayne didn't take too kindly to be mentioned on Whacked Up Murals. He tweeted soon after it dropped saying, "Man, what the fuck did I do? I just be chilling and they still come for my head. Let's not take kindness for weakness. Let this giant sleep. I beg you all, no one really wants destruction, not even me, but I shall destroy if disturbed. On me, love." Now, I'm not sure if this will ignite a full-on rap beef between Kendrick Lamar and Lil Wayne, but I strongly doubt that, considering just how over everything Kendrick sounds on GNX. He literally brushes it off with a whatever though just after this bar. He said on Like that he'd diss Melly Mel if he had to, and how he's willing to crash out. And it appears that he's sticking by his word, throwing a shot at not only a certified legend, but someone he has gone on record to call an inspiration. He goes on to address Snoop Dogg, someone who Kendrick Lamar has flat out said is one of his favorite 5 rappers of all time. With the bars, Snoop posted tailor-made, I prayed it was the edibles. I couldn't believe it. It was only right for me to let it go. Referring to Snoop expressing his amusement and how unfazed he was with the whole Drake AI Snoop Dogg verse on tailor-made freestyle back in April. Considering how much Kendrick values Snoop's legacy, he literally passed him the torch of the West Coast on stage in 2011. He clearly sees this as a kind of what the fuck moment. Snoop also responded to this bar pretty quickly, praising GNX, calling him the West Coast King, and confirming it was in fact the edibles, which I think is fair enough. Kendrick's verse continues the theme of destruction and hammering home the point that nobody is owed too much respect. It's something that once again was alluded to on Watch the Party Die. Fuck a double entendre, I want y'all to feel this shit is GNX in a nutshell. As evidenced by later tracks, Kendrick doesn't mince his words on this album. It's not the introspective therapy session that Mr. Morale was. It's not the high concept, super intricate narrative of Good Kid, Mad City or To Pimp a Butterfly. Verse 3 elaborates on Kendrick's connection to his city, his roots, and the values he refuses to compromise on. He says there will be no truce, and he's willing to take people down to hell with him before he agrees to said truce. And that bar, I feel, might be a reference to this bar from Mad City where he rapped, "You killed my cousin back in 94, fuck your truce." Later in the verse, Kendrick raps, "Fuck your hip hop, I watched the party just die." The important operative word here is your. We all know Kendrick's passion for the art of hip hop, but as dissected in Watch the Party Die, he sees it as something that has become bastardized, manipulated and exploited by those with ill intent. One bar that has been lighting up the internet is, "Don't let no white comedian talk about no black woman, that's law," which people are speculating might be a reference to the comedian Andrew Schultz, who made disparaging, derogatory remarks and jokes about black women on his podcast in the company of 2 British black podcasters who seemed not to G-check him on his comments. I don't know how tuned in Kendrick is online, especially in those kind of spaces, which is part of his mystique, but this is clearly a larger commentary on white people getting perhaps too comfortable making flippant remarks about things they fundamentally don't understand. Worth mentioning at this point in the song, his flow speeds and intensifies as the song ends with Kendrick describing some of the struggles he had to face before finally making it to where he is now. Squabble Up is the next song, and its opening section was of course teased in the opening to the Not Like Us music video. I have been fucking dying for this song for months, and I was scared, like a lot of Kendrick Lamar fans, that this snippet would end up like the snippet at the start of the All Right music video.
Tell me who the bitch nigga hating on me, jumping on my dick but this dick ain't free, to Pimp a Butterfly, another classic CD.
Even though I've had that 10-second intro snippet stuck in my head since the video dropped, it's still somehow surpassed my expectations. As I was writing this very paragraph that I'm uttering and reading off my laptop right now, he had just dropped the music video, which is jam-packed with a sea of Easter eggs and references to the West Coast, hip-hop history, and so much more. I think it's important that a track like this isn't overly intellectualized or dissected line by line. I think that fundamentally defeats its appeal and purpose. But on the flip side, that doesn't mean Kendrick's pen on Squabble Up is lazy. It's far from it. It's a loud, instantly catchy West Coast banger party song that is infectious off the bat. He describes himself as reincarnated, which has multiple implications. Reincarnated after the therapy session that was Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Reincarnated after the metaphorical violence of his beef with Drake in the summer. And of course, reincarnated literally, as we will find out later on in the album. But back to Squabble Up. It's so fun. It's so fucking fun. The Debbie Deb When I Hear Music sample is amazing. Kendrick's quirky flows and inflections are reminiscent of some of the quote-unquote sillier tracks he's previously made with Baby Keem. But the bars are just so cold. They're so cold. A ye nigga couldn't try me in a tri-state buddy pass. Bet I get him splashed till he's hydrated. What the fuck? What do you mean? What do you mean you splash him till he's hydrated? What the fuck? The hook. I've been pissing off my partner for the past week and a half, just walking around my flat, just going, I feel good, get the fuck out of my high. Sticky vocal stims that I can't get out of my head. It echoes some of the sentiments of Euphoria, particularly where he said, everything with me is blessed. but also hammers home the point that his priority is protecting his and his family's peace. If you're not on board or you threaten to jeopardize said peace, it's fuck you. It's as simple as that, apparently. As always, Kendrick sees himself as the one to continue the spirit, energy, and message of Tupac, and does so with the line, "Spit a loogie at the camera, speed off, yeah, it's us," which is a clear reference to this Tupac clip.
Said there were two sides to Tupac, the wonderful side and the not so wonderful. Suge Knight's influence brought out the worst. Tupac now started to wage a war against Biggie.
It's worth noting that Kendrick did the exact same thing in the start of the Not Like Us music video and in the Family Ties music video as well. The third verse is my personal favorite, and it's for reasons that is hard to articulate. It's the flows, it's the way he spits alongside the crazy kicks, and of course the ridiculous vocal inflections. People have been dissecting some of these bars as, again, possible Drake disses. It's hard not to at this point, particularly lines like "bitch with him and some bitch in him, that's a lot of bitch, don't hit him, he got kids with him, my apology." The bars are objectively hilarious, but again, the scope is so much wider than this one person, which was the mission statement of Watch the Party Die. The target is the entire industry. Interestingly, Kendrick describes his music as a brick of raw, which he similarly did on the 2013 Nostalgia track with Pusha T. He goes on to question why people are even rapping if they're spitting fictional fairy tales before taking the energy up to 11 before screaming at the end of his verse. Luther is next, and the best way for me to describe this song is like pure love filtered through the medium of violence. Instrumentally and cadence-wise, it's incredibly smooth, resting on the amazing Luther Vandross sample and SZA's vocal work. Their voices mesh is beautiful and buttery, and I think might already be my favorite Kendrick and SZA collaboration so far. But lyrically, this song is both violent and romantic. If this world was mine, I'd take your enemies in front of God, introduce them to that light, hit them strictly with that fire. Loving someone so much that you would commit unspeakable acts of violence appears to be the message of the song, but it's to an end. Like he said on Whacked Out Murals, he'd take people down to hell with him if it meant compromising his values. He's willing to do literally anything to ensure his loved ones see a world of peace and prosperity. If he has to be the one to burn it down to get to that point, then so be it. The hook is yet another Tupac reference. Kendrick and SZA sing, "In this world, concrete flowers grow," a reference to the Tupac poem entitled "The Rose That Grew from Concrete," which highlights beauty arising from the most unexpected dark places. Kendrick himself has used a similar bar before on Poetic Justice when he rapped, "If I told you that a flower bloomed in a dark room, would you trust it?" It's also worth noting, and this is probably a reach, but it was brought to my attention, that the Luther Vandross song that's sampled here was used in the 1999 movie The Wood. The Wood is a coming-of-age movie about the memories of romance and youth in Inglewood, which is just a 30-minute drive from Kendrick's hometown of Compton. Luther lyrically is pretty straightforward. It's the sincerity and just how fucking smooth it is that sells the song. Kendrick and SZA were former TDE label mates, and their chemistry is still there. They go back and forth throughout the track that fundamentally is about vulnerability in love. Man at the Garden is a mind-blowing moment on GNX for me. It's one of a handful of songs where Kendrick reminds us of his approach to a conceptual story with a clear narrative purpose. As many people have rightfully pointed out, it appears to be a homage to Nas's Stillmatic track One Mic. It bears resemblance in how it builds towards its climax, its structure, and some of the lyrical themes too. When I first saw the title Man at the Garden, knowing Kendrick's body of work, my mind immediately assumed that this was going to be some sort of biblical song. A man, maybe Adam himself, as a conduit for Kendrick at the entrance to the Garden of Eden or Paradise or whatever you want to call it. Man at the Garden, in the best way possible, is a deeply conflicted song. On paper, it's an incredibly confident song, so much so that some people might call it pretentious or egotistical. But I actually think it's one of the most vulnerable moments on GNX. And to be fair, that reading might only make sense if you've listened to all of Kendrick's preceding works. Hearing him on the first verse state that he deserves all of these earthly desires like diamonds, cars, his money in the club, power, and money isn't normal for Kendrick. And you'd expect something like this to be delivered in one of the more high tempo songs. But Man at the Garden is so fucking somber. It's almost like he's disappointed in himself for genuinely believing that he deserves all of these things. The second verse provides us with the rationale behind why he deserves all of these things. He describes himself as having pure intentions, which he himself will go on to question later down the album. He goes on to tell us that he doesn't ask for credit and he doesn't want validation just for aesthetics. One bar that stands out to me is, I see you as a human first, even when you didn't understand your worth. Particularly, and I know I keep referencing the album, but it's such an important moment in Kendrick's career, particularly in the aftermath of Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. On Mr. Morale, he explicitly said that he chose humanity over religion on Auntie Diaries. And of course, the story and the whole point of Auntie Diaries lends itself to viewing people as people first, above all else, above religion or prejudice or anything like that. Humanity took precedence over everything, and that's what he appears to be referring to. Of course, on a track as somber as this one, it might be a reference to himself. He recognized the humanity within himself even when he was at his lowest point. Writing words trying to elevate these children has been a through line throughout all of Kendrick's career. Even during the disses on Meet the Grahams, he sounded genuinely concerned for Drake's child or children and was actively giving them advice. He ends the verse by saying, "Every reason why my ancestors sent me, bitch, I deserve it all." Laced into that line is Kendrick continuing to recognize the lineage of those who've come before him. But the line hits even harder and takes on a whole new meaning when you hear Reincarnated later down the line. The phrase, "I deserve it all," again, within the context of his career, isn't just the claim that he deserves all of the praise and the awards and the accolades. It implies that he also deserves all of the pain and hardships and struggles he's gone through to get to this point. The scope of the song widens during the final verse as he makes the claim why not only he deserves all of the achievements, but his family and his city do too as well. He opens the third verse by saying, "Put a smile on my mama, good health and good karma, yeah, she deserves it all." My mind immediately went to Mother I Sober, which details the unimaginable trauma that his mother went through. Kendrick goes on to state that there's 100 murals out in Compton in a direct contrast to whacked out murals. He acknowledges that he has an extremely strong support and fan base that outweighs all of the negativity. As the verse intensifies, he wishes for blessings for his children, but as is the theme of the album, this isn't to be compromised. He's willing to resort to violence to protect what he and his family deserve. "I burn this bitch down, don't you play with me or stay with me. I'm crashing out right now, no one's safe with me." More blood spilling, it's just paint. More blood spilling, it's just paint to me might be like top 5 bars on this album for me. It's bleak and beautiful at the same time, but it shouldn't be a surprise. Like I previously mentioned, his previous album had him explicitly tell us that he's choosing himself and choosing his family above everything else. It ends with the mic drop of, "Tell me why you think you deserve the greatest of all time, motherfucker." Kendrick just told us in explicit detail all of the reasons why he feels he can justify calling himself the GOAT. I personally have been calling Kendrick Lamar the GOAT since 2012, since Good Kid, Mad City came out. But that's just because I'm tapped and I'm a bit of an obsessive fan, as you can clearly fucking tell. But the case he makes is compelling, one that he hasn't made this explicitly before as well. Kendrick flips the vibe once again with one of the most ominous and scary and spooky songs he's made. Hey Now's beat is freezing cold, dark, bass heavy. It's one of 2 mustard beats on the album, and you can tell pretty early on. It's an intensely threatening moment that doubles down on his motivation and commitment to his craft. "You crash out, then you better break the backboard" is him saying, commit to your cause. He's been telling us since Like That dropped that he is willing to crash out. His string of diss tracks in the summer was him breaking the backboard, going all in. It's hard not to map loads of these bars from GNX onto the Drake beef, but I think this song is where he maybe most explicitly references it. "You play God, you gonna get what you ask for" has to be a reference to Drake consistently calling himself the 6th God. Kendrick makes further reference to how scarce his public appearances are, recognizing that when he does in fact pop out, it's always an event. "The Black Noah, I just strangled me a goat." I love that bar. I fucking love that bar. Is once again a reference to his takedown of Drake. As the story goes in the Bible, of course, 2 of every animal were taken on Noah's Ark. There isn't space for any more goats, so to speak, so he had to strangle one out. I walked in with a therapeutic flow, put a few hundred up, let 'em go, is another reference to Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, an album rooted in therapy. And that's why these cold, ominous tracks hit so hard, because Mr. Morale was the homework and this is the payoff. We have the context of immense vulnerability preceding it. It feels earned and we can track the progression from album to album. The second verse is where Hey Now intensifies as Kendrick mockingly takes down what he deems as fakes and lames. Again, for me, it's the inflection and delivery and voice that sells it and makes me laugh every time. What the fuck you wearing, bro? It's tacky niggas laying on a deathbed trying to match me. Then we get another ridiculous moment where the vibe of the song switches from ominous to euphoric. Super West Coast synths kick in unexpectedly. It's a moment that just needs to be heard. It scratches an itch that I can't really articulate or put into any kind of interesting words. It's just fucking heat. This fat fucking bass comes in as Kendrick declares himself way too important to ever be slid on ever again. This summer just gone may be the only time he ever engages in beef like this. We then get the first of a string of West Coast features with Dodie 9 as they trade cold-blooded bars back and forth. As many who aren't from where Kendrick is from, I had never heard of Dirty 9. His verse makes me immediately want to check out more of his stuff. His bars are witty, the flow is crazy, and it just matches the beat perfectly. Now, as mentioned, GNX is Kendrick's least conceptually focused album, prioritizing a more aggressive and visceral approach than his other projects. Reincarnated is one of the exceptions to this rule, and should realistically warrant its own entire video. It's the kind of song that only Kendrick would make. We must speak about the beat and the delivery before we even touch on the lyrics. Reincarnated samples Tupac's Made Niggas, unstoppable, untouchable, motherfucking worldwide bomb, and has Kendrick embodying the spirit of Tupac with both his voice and flow throughout the song. As has been talked to death at this point, there is not a more important musical figure in Kendrick Lamar's life than Tupac. On the Heart Part 3, in my opinion, the best of the Heart series, don't at me, he opened it by rapping, "When the whole world sees you as Puck reincarnated, that's enough pressure to live your whole life sedated." Kendrick has always seen himself as a vessel to carry on the spirit of Tupac, and that has never been more apparent than on this fucking song. The track takes some of the themes of generational trauma from Mr. Morale and somehow widens its scope. It's a near cosmic approach to the subject matter as Kendrick uses the song to achieve multiple goals in a story that spans generations and decades. The song is structured as a triptych tale, which Kendrick loves doing on songs like Sing About Me or Mama, for example, but it's a whole new spin on that approach. Kendrick embodies the spirit of two Black American musical figures who fell victim to a litany of vices. Not only that, he uses it to tell the tale seemingly of rewriting the literal devil's story, opening up about his father kicking him out, a clear reference to the tale of Satan being kicked out of heaven by God. Every day a new version of me, a third of me demented. It's both a meta reference to this very song, where he embodies three distinct earthly beings, as well as being a reference to his artistry in general. He's always trying something new, a new approach or a new sound where a new version of him is born with every project that seems to come out. Kendrick mentions that what prompted this approach, this story, is his experience with past life regression, a sort of hypnosis theorized to access past life memories, falling into the realm of kind of pseudoscience and spirituality. He mentioned this on Worldwide Steppers as well with the bar, "Teleport out my own body for comfort. I don't pass judgment. Past life regressions keep me in question." In that context, it referred to the past lives of his family members and the trauma they endured, and how that continues to affect him. On Reincarnated, that is now applied to a much broader concept, the concept of the Black American entertainer. The first of these tales takes place in Michigan in 1947 as a talented guitar player. People have been speculating that this is a reference to Johnny Lee Hooker, but I don't think that the specific person is too important or not something to at least hyper-focus on. Kendrick speaks as this 1940s guitar player in Michigan as someone who didn't listen to sound advice, only cared about his art and the fruits of his labor. This character has the money, the wealth, and respect he'd always dreamed of, alongside the fame and women falling at his feet. But it consumed him. Kendrick says, "I manipulated power as I lied to the masses, died with my money. Gluttony was too attractive." This is a bar that Kendrick sees himself in. As he told us, on Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, he's no longer trying to save this world and was perhaps misguided in that pursuit. The message he gave us about saving said world may be the lie he speaks of here. He manipulated his power, so to speak, the idea of his music ushering in tangible change just for financial gain. It's a bit like the bar on Mother I Sober where he says, I traded in my tears for a Range Rover. Again, on the surface, it's a tale about a talented star lured in by wealth and fame, straying further away from the initial point and ethos of his art. But as Kendrick says, this soul, this character, is one and the same with the following two characters. All that applies to one applies to all. The second verse has Kendrick reincarnated as a black vocalist, and this tale strongly resembles the life of Billie Holiday. A musical genius, what the articles emphasized, had everything I wanted, but I couldn't escape addiction. That, once again, is both this singer character and Kendrick himself. Kendrick has been undeniably the most critically acclaimed rapper of the last 10 to 15 years. And by virtue of that fact, he has been labeled many times a musical genius. He became the rap superstar he wanted to be and feels he deserves at this point, but couldn't escape some sort of addiction. Now, of course, in the specific tale that Kendrick is telling here, that addiction is drugs that leads to this character's untimely death. Previous Kendrick albums have had him openly discuss both addictions to alcohol and sex. The specifics of addiction isn't what's important here, it's the hole that it fills. The dual function of all the verses is fucking crazy to me. Kendrick spinning an incredibly tragic and specific tale of black entertainers who fell victim to their vices, yet somehow makes it conceptually relevant. Sex and Melodies Gave Me Hope When Nobody's Looking is Kendrick's admission of infidelity on Worldwide Steppers. The point is that Kendrick sees what he's currently doing as nothing particularly new. He's seen his predecessors do the exact same thing in different fonts, and now he's trying to buck that trend. My first assistant was a small town scholar, never did a quaalude till I got myself around her. Is of course extremely tragic. I won't speculate on the specifics or dive into the specifics of Billie Holiday's well-documented life, as Kendrick doesn't mention her by name. My question is, how is this relevant to Kendrick's life, which becomes apparent by the end of the song? That lyric is, if you'll pardon the pun, this singer and Kendrick misusing their influence, misusing it so much that it negatively impacts those around them. It makes this bar in the first verse where he says, I don't know how to make friends, I'm a lonely soul, I recollect this isolation, I was 4 years old, also super tragic. It implies that the reason he doesn't know how to make friends is because he knows the possible negative influence he'll have on them. It's safer for both parties to just remain lonely souls. The third verse is where this spirit, apparently Satan himself, raps from the perspective of Kendrick Lamar. Now, side note, the idea of Kendrick Lamar playing the character of Satan, playing the character of Kendrick Lamar is fucking crazy. It's the kind of conceptual storytelling, at least in mainstream rap, that only he would attempt. Kendrick's superpower for me has always been embodying the lives and perspectives of others. Whether it's gangbangers and sex workers on Sing About Me, or God as the homeless person on How Much a Dollar Cost, or maybe even more relevant to this track, as Lucifer on For Sale. But now that concept is reimagined through a literal out-of-body experience. Kendrick draws parallels between his current life and those who have come before him. A rapper looking at the lyrics to keep you in awe, the only factor I respected was raising the bar, is how he sees himself apparently. He mentions once again that his father kicked him out of the house, but now he's forgiven him. This isn't from the perspective of Kendrick Lamar, but this Satan character that he will go on to allude to. It's made obvious by the fact that he mentions the sin of pride in the following bar. He calls out to his father, to God, asking if the third time around is the time he finally got it right, before God responds to him. God acknowledges the good work that Kendrick or this character has done, but says his heart remains closed and he must let his pride die or kill his pride. In a flip of the narrative from Man at the Garden, instead of listing all the reasons he deserves what he currently has, he goes on to list what he believes should ensure his spot in heaven and tries to provide proof that his pride has died. He lists all of these selfless acts he's done before God calls him out for loving war after Kendrick claimed he was trying to push peace in LA. Kendrick's music has of course been laced with conflict and violence, and conflict about the attitudes towards violence. 616 in LA, for example, had Kendrick literally questioning what kind of person he would be if he didn't go to war when he was pushed to do so. Then the most overt reference to this character being Satan is laid out, As God says, he fell out of heaven because he was anxious, as he references Isaiah 14. In that passage, it specifically discusses the fall of Satan from heaven. God implies that he gave the power of entertainment and music to Satan through these three characters as a test before Kendrick agrees to use his talents for good, to live life in harmony, as he declares that he's rewritten the devil's story. We don't get the answer as to whether he will be rejoined with God in heaven or not, only the promise that he will try to do good and do better. And that's where Reincarnated ends. It's a fucking insane journey, crazy, creative and imaginative, consistently mind-bending. And bear in mind, this song is on an album that people consider Kendrick's least conceptually focused. It's funny that after this revelation, we get one of, if not the biggest straight up bangers on GNX, TV Off. TV Off feels like the spiritual sequel to N95 from Mr. Morale or DNA from Damn, in terms of how it's a blunt, straightforward display of what Kendrick deems to be his core values. It's the second mustard beat of this album. It's similar in structure and vibe and bounce to Not Like Us and scratches that same West Coast itch. Fuck being rational, give them what they asked for just before the beat drops is so fucking perfect. You want hits, you want the turn up shit, there you go. Like most of GNX, it's confrontational and it's playful. I get on their ass, somebody gotta do it. I make them niggas mad, somebody gotta do it. That's the sport and spirit of hip hop. It's that competitive edge that Kendrick has been injecting or trying to inject into hip hop or back into hip hop since the Control verse in 2013. And of course, 2024 is the year that Kendrick made a lot of people mad. He made one person so mad, in fact, that he's suing his own fucking record label. Everything about TV Off is just sticky and memorable. The beat, Kendrick's flows, punchlines, and again, vocal intonation. It's so important. It's such a core aspect of Kendrick's appeal. The second verse ups the intensity as he makes a reference to Gil Scott-Heron's Revolution Won't Be Televised. We get another voice from Kendrick and another vocal stim for me to piss people off with the, "Hey, what's up though? I hit a bitch that's hitting on a bitch and they both hoes. I hit a nigga hitting on them niggas and they both broke." If you go back to the lyrics of Cut You Off from Overly Dedicated from like 15 years ago, it's the exact same sentiment, just in a different bow. We get an unexpected beat switch about halfway through as Kendrick provides a mustard battle cry that became an instantaneous meme. And when I say instant, I literally mean instant. I opened TikTok like 10 minutes after the album dropped and I saw mustard! It's so ridiculous and so hilarious. And I have to keep reminding people that I'm not surprised when Kendrick does shit like this, because he has been like equal parts silly and funny and hilarious throughout his career, just as much as he's this heady, high concept, super deep lyrical rapper. He's both. He opens the verse by paying homage to yet another hip hop legend, interpolating some B.I.G. bars from Kick in the Door.
Ain't no other kings in this rap thing, they siblings, nothing but my children. One shot, they disappearing.
Ain't no other king in this rap thing, they siblings, nothing but my children. One shot, they disappearing.
Kendrick drops bar after bar after bar, particularly the trying to show niggas the ropes before they hang from a rope. The way he ends the verse might be my favorite section of the song and embodies the energy of popping out. Walk in New Orleans with the etiquette of LA yelling, and then he does another mustard battle cry. Of course, in reference to his upcoming Super Bowl performance in New Orleans, with a clear intent on representing LA to the max. It's notable that this bar is rapped on one of the most LA regional songs on GNX. Lefty Gunplay closes out the track with the repeated phrase of "shit get crazy, scary, spooky, hilarious, crazy, scary, spooky, hilarious." If you wanted to map it on to the Drake and Kendrick beef, those 4 words are Kendrick's 4 diss tracks. Euphoria was crazy, 616 was scary, Meet the Grahams was spooky, and Not Like Us was fucking hilarious. Regardless, it's catchy as hell. Dodger Blue has the most features of a single song on GNX, but is surprisingly the shortest at just over 2 minutes. I think it could have been 4 or 5 minutes. It features Wally the Sensi, Siete 7X, and Roddy Ricch, of course. It sounds like driving late at night with the bright lights of your city just whizzing by you. It's like the entire song is a G-check on someone stepping foot in LA as a phony, as someone whose LA's credentials are being questioned. Don't say you hate LA when you don't travel past the 10. As someone from London, funnily enough, is such a relatable bar. I'm sure that when people say, I hate LA, I don't like Los Angeles, they're probably referring to a very small section of that place that isn't representative of it as a whole. If I apply that to my city, which is of course London, it's like saying, I hate London, but you've never stepped out of Westminster. You've never seen past Big Ben and the London Eye and Piccadilly Circus. Kendrick has always tried to put on for his city at every opportunity from the early days. It culminated with that love being showed back with all the murals, the pop-up concert, and he got to perform at Dodger Stadium during Camp Flogmanor last year. The hook, with the features all bouncing between each other, is incredibly catchy and smooth. And I'll be honest, their voices mesh a bit too well because I have a hard time differentiating between them sometimes. Kendrick appears to give a step-by-step instruction on how to crip walk, which is hilarious in its own right, before a super smooth outro from Sam Dew and Ink. We return to something a lot darker and grimier with Peekaboo, with the one vocal stem that's latched onto my fucking brain like the Venom symbiote. Huh? The title of the track, how dark it is, and Kendrick's flexes appear to be him fully embracing that nickname of the Boogeyman. If the rap Boogeyman had a theme song or entrance music, it would fucking sound like this. Again, hearing Kendrick flex in this way is very few and far between, and that's why it feels strange and off and unsettling. Peekaboo popping out "you better not smut my name" is of course a reference to Not Like Us, where he explicitly said sometimes you gotta pop out and show niggas, but also a reference to the Damn era where he referred to himself as the Candyman on Element. Just say his name and I promise that you'll see the Candyman. In 2017, I thought seeing the Candyman was just a cool hard bar to end the verse with, but in retrospect, he fucking meant that shit. The second verse has Kendrick and As Cheek, or As Cheek, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, trading bars with amazing chemistry and unforgettable one-liners, particularly Peekaboo, let me FaceTime my op. I've heard that this song has been quite divisive on social media. I just deleted Twitter/X, whatever you want to call it, just before this album dropped, so I'm not tapped into Twitter anymore. Apparently it's been splitting opinion. I don't know why, because it goes fucking hard. Kendrick briefly goes into a different dimension with more vocal stems with the hey that's my bitch, and of course bing bap boom 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 bap bam, one of the hardest bars of the year. Of course, you know, it's like fucking onomatopoeia for just beating someone up, but I feel, and I'd like to think it's a reference to one of the greatest fucking rappers of all time, Mr. Super Hot Fire.
Boom, bam, bop, bada bop, boom, pow.
And like a lot of songs on GNX, it's got the same kind of energy as a song like Range Brothers with Baby Keem. And a lot of the songs on GNX, articulating why and how they work is kind of a redundant task. It's just a visceral reaction and a source that isn't really describable. You're not going to get essays and think pieces like we did when To Pimp a Butterfly and Damn dropped, which is fine. The intent of this album is very different. The next song is what they call For the Fans. Heart Part 6, as you would guess, is the 6th installment of Kendrick's long-running series of tracks that usually drop before a new project is to be announced or dropped. It of course also reclaims that title from Drake's pitiful attempt at a rebuttal back in May where he used that title. To this day, one of the cringiest moments I think I've ever experienced in popular culture. Kendrick sidesteps any mention or acknowledgement that Drake's track ever existed and uses the Heart Part 6 as an origin story for his career alongside TDE and Black Hippie. The first thing I thought of when I heard this track was actually another track in the Heart series, my personal favourite, the Heart Part 3, which dropped the day before Good Kid, Mad City in 2012. The Heart Part 3 follows a similar structure, although a bit more intense, as Kendrick details his love of hip-hop and how his TDE friends and family helped each other along the way. The Heart Part 3 and the Heart Part 6 even reference the same points in Kendrick and Black Hippie's life, whether it be Schoolboy Q being briefly homeless, his admiration of Absol's pen game, or J-Rock being the first one to be signed. In my head, the Heart Part 6, and this is going to sound fucking tapped, the Heart Part 6 is the Heart Part 3 Part 2. Heart Part 6 also samples the amazing SWV song, Use Your Heart. As with any story really, it's the detail that colors and sells the picture he paints as he references the food they were eating in the studio, the jokes they were cracking, and Absol cracking a small smile as he rolled his weed. 616 in LA was, in my head, a clear homage and nod to Absol's style, and that was formally acknowledged during the pop-art show where he rapped it directly to Absol's face. GNX is the first Kendrick album after his almost 20-year association with TDE, and yet he makes it a point to dedicate a whole song to their camaraderie. It personally makes me feel super nostalgic. I'm remembering the first time I saw the Say What's Up video, or hearing Kendrick on old J-Rock songs, for example. Kendrick mentions J-Rock being the first one to be signed and being so happy and supportive of him that he felt like it was a win for him too. Everything I had was for the team. I remained patient, grinding with my brothers. It was us against them. No one above us. Bless our hearts. That's not just empty words. The 4 members of Black Hippie have always been super supportive of each other, regardless of if they were making music together at the time or not. It's straight to the point and just extremely heartfelt. The second verse gives Dave Free his flowers, arguably Kendrick's closest collaborator. As he says, he wore many different hats back in the day, which he still does right now. He even gives a shout out to Mixed by Ali, who was there in the early days, and when I hear his name, all I think about is the intro to Cut You Off.
Ali, you thirsty on Twitter. You boo-boo, you tea.
Kendrick continues to pay dues to a host of TDE members outside of Black Hippie, including Punch, Moose, Tease, and most notably Soundwave. Soundwave might just be the most important musical collaborator that Kendrick has ever had. He's worked on every single one of his projects. Some, and I say some in giant fucking letters because it's just a small cross section, some of the tracks that Soundwave has helped produce include ADHD, Mad City, Alright, King Kunta, Love, Element, All the Stars, N95, and so much more. Kendrick mentions how Soundwave let him borrow his clothes when he was a hype man, which is a stark contrast to where Kendrick is now. Kendrick then pivots to where he is now and where he sees himself in the future. He says he wants to now position himself as a black executive, which we can see happening in real time with his PG Lang work. They're producing commercials, short films, advertising campaigns, music videos. They've even got a film in the works with the creators of South Park due to come out next year. Kendrick keeps it real and acknowledges that Black Hippie didn't reach its potential because of his own ambitions. His solo career was taking off in an unimaginable way. That meant that a full-length collab project between the 4 members of Black Hippie looked increasingly unlikely as the years went on. But Kendrick makes it a point to keep it real with the ones that are close to you, to communicate, to be honest, and that's the reason there appears to be no animosity between Kendrick and his former label mates. They were basically all there at the pop-art concert and in the Not Like Us music video, evidenced by the fact that they continue to support and champion each other even though they are no longer officially associated. After this, we get the title track, GNX, the title track to the album where Kendrick actually doesn't have a verse of his own, but rather constructs a West Coast posse cut with some relative unknowns, unknown outside of LA at least. The beat is another grimy, dark, unsettling one as Kendrick provides more quotables and more strange vocal inflections like, "Hey, I'm tripping and I'm loving it." Like, what? A rapper called Peso gets the first verse off with an instantly striking voice and flow that is incredibly LA as you would imagine. The "Tell 'em Kendrick did it" bar is flipped and Peso's name is inserted, ensuring that Kendrick is able to platform some rappers that he believes deserve that platforming. In terms of the next feature, Hitter J3, this is by no means the first time Kendrick and him have linked up. Kendrick hopped on a remix of his 2013 track Do Your Gudda. He was at the pop-out concert, he was in the video, and most notably to me, he is front and center of the To Pimp a Butterfly album cover. Hitter J3 has spoken before on how connected Kendrick remains to his people and to Compton. He's spoken about how he even gave Hitter a free feature as well. Hitter J3 is clearly someone Kendrick shares a long connection with and mutual respect for, and that's most likely part of the reason why he's on this track. However, my favorite verse on this track is the final one from Young Threat. The beat is at its most skeletal and minimal, but his flow is unlike anything I've ever heard in my fucking life. If you're from LA, if this is a vibe and a style, a flow, a cadence that is already a thing, please let me know because I need more of it because it's fucking fire. The voice, the strange flow, the bars are all just different. That's the only word I can use to describe it. It's just different. GNX ends with Gloria, featuring SZA again. Like Man at the Garden and Reincarnated, it's one of the more conceptually dense tracks on GNX, but implores an approach he's used before. Gloria, on the face of it, is a song about the highs and lows of his romantic relationship, but that ends up being a facade, as the ending reveals the entire song is an extended metaphor for his pen and artistic endeavors. Gloria continues the long-running rap tradition of using a relationship as a metaphor for hip-hop and writing itself, most notably perhaps on the 1994 Common track I Used to Love Her. Kendrick half sings, half raps the first verse as he details the first time he fell in love with writing but has a toxic relationship with his craft. It's little lines like "kiss you in the back of the class just to get a buzz with you" that make the song for me. It's a love that's lasted from childhood up until this very moment. A love that, if we're to take Mr. Morale at its word, affected his actual relationship too. Remember when Granny died, you looked at me and said, "Baby, dry your eyes, depend on me as your relief, let your anger be mine." Is Kendrick affirming that he's always used rap as his therapy, as a way to process grief and channel that energy into art? But that isn't always the most healthy approach, and may have been what eventually prompted him to seek actual therapy on his previous album. The second verse sees us with a version of Kendrick around a decade ago as he struggled with his artistic output. Said you gon' see other people if I didn't grow with you. Wasn't no more hiding them pistols in front of stores with you. You want reality, not tragedy, for sure I got you. That's the struggle between authenticity and growth. His pen, his ability to write, he felt was threatened by his commercial success. That's what appears to prompt his 2014 visit to South Africa, where he visited Robben Island, where Nelson Mandela was imprisoned, as he was writing or starting to write To Pimp a Butterfly. Fabrication, I discussed you, then you blocked me, I said fuck you, is the explicit reference to writer's block that he has mentioned before on previous albums. And on Mr. Morale, he mentioned that he experienced writer's block for 2 years and nothing moved him until God moved through him. The final verse details the emotional turmoil between Kendrick and his writing, his pen. Through the passion, the love, spontaneity, and a whole lot more, he discusses the continuing love-hate relationship between the two. My favorite bar in this song is, "Remember when you caught that body and still wiggled through that sentence?" Like, knowing the twist ending, it's just fucking crazy. It's such a crazy bar. Kendrick also raps, "My baby boo, you either heal niggas or you kill niggas," which continues his career-long obsession with duality and polar opposites, as well as being an explicit reference to this bar from 2016's What's Wrong with Azai Rashad.
Depending on the way I feel, I might kill everybody around me, might heal everybody around me, how the wind blow.
And that just happens to be my favorite Kendrick Lamar feature to this day. Kendrick gets more explicit with the double entendres, making references to margins, to pages, to chapters, to erasers, as he builds up to the big reveal that this person he's in a toxic relationship with isn't a person but his pen, as it ends with an amazing crescendo. SZA closes out the album with some belted vocals as GNX comes to a close. GNX isn't like any other Kendrick album, which I feel like I say every time Kendrick Lamar drops a fucking album, but it stands out in a way that others don't for how visceral and regional it is. Kendrick has always paid dues and homage to where he's from in his lyrics, but now that is everything on this album. As this is the start of his career post-TDE, it's fitting that we are introduced to a new but familiar sound from Kendrick. And of course, any album that Kendrick dropped in 2024 after the Drake beef was going to make waves. As I record this very fucking sentence, GNX songs occupy 7 of the top 10 songs in America, with Squabble being number 1, which is a feat only achieved by Taylor Swift, The Beatles, and Drake. But it's the kind of songs that are doing these numbers. Which is not normal. Of course, if you make the most palatable, bland, milk toast music, a lot of the time it will just rise to the top because it's the least offensive. But like, Reincarnated is a top 10 hit. A song where Kendrick reimagines himself as a fallen angel, as Satan, trying to get back into heaven, and tells the story of how he was reincarnated in the souls of different Black American performers. Like, that is a top 10 hit. That doesn't make sense. That's not normal. I love GNX. I love this album. I'm a Kendrick Lamar stan. I'm one of those dudes who heard Kendrick say, "wah," and I called it genius. It is fucking genius, but still, GNX feels so fresh and in the moment with the energy that doesn't sound like it's come from someone who's like 15 years deep into their career. I know that some people have been speculating he's gearing up for another album. Listen, I was there in 2017 when people were theorizing on the Damn Nation double album that was meant to drop as Jesus rose on Easter Sunday. Like, I was there in the Reddit threads. It's not going to happen, okay? The second album may come in. He's just announced a fucking tour with SZA named after this album. It's not. And if another album drops, then I stand corrected. But it's not coming. But as with every Kendrick drop at this point, I'm loving it. I'm playing it over and over again. I'm finding new little nuggets of information and Easter eggs that reward multiple listens. I can't wait for a Super Bowl performance. I'd be really interested to see if he actually drops the PDF bar from Not Like Us. As I just mentioned, he's announced a stadium tour with SZA, only in North America, which doesn't work for me. I live on the fucking other side of the Atlantic. Please come to London, please, I beg you. I don't want to have to fucking buy flights to the middle of America just to see this nigga perform. But yeah, Kendrick is up in a way very few are this deep into their careers, and he continues to do it on his own terms, embodying the fundamental aspects and spirit of hip-hop.